All right, after a week off, we're back here on Prime Sports Golf to preview this week's BMW Championship from Conway Farms as the FedEx Cup Playoffs come to an end next week at the Tour Championship in Atlanta. So let's get right to it, and much more as the Prime Sports Golf broadcast here on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, September 13th, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. We've got two more events to go on the PGA Tour, and that's it for the 2017 season. So we're going to bring as much golf news to your listening pleasure over the next hour, including a preview of the PGA Tour event this week in Illinois, and then one more to go next week in Atlanta. And then after that, it's the President's Cup. And then, unfortunately, or fortunately, there's not much time off before the next season begins. Let's welcome in, first of all, my first co-host. And I guess let me ask you, Jeff Shane. Is it fortunately or unfortunately that there's no time off?
I think it depends on your point of view. If you are one of the guys on the top of the food chain, I suppose it really doesn't matter because you're probably only going to play one or two events during the fall schedule anyway. That's the one thing about being an independent contractor situation is you get to pick and choose your schedule more or less, and unless you can't get into certain events. But Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, we're not going to expect to see them much during the fall because we haven't seen many big names during the fall. They play one or two. If you are one of the guys at the Web.com finals right now, and you're playing for one of those last PGA Tour cards for the season that starts in 4 weeks, you, A, want to secure that card, and B, you want to get off to a really good start so that you can put yourself on a path to having an extended run on the PGA Tour. So it's all on how you want to make it.
And how about you, Jeff? Personally, is it good or not good that there's a break? No break.
Well,
I mean, as a fan, do you feel like you even... it's golf. It's a slower paced game. You could always just tune in on Sunday if you want to watch the drama. So it's not like it's not like, oh, I've got to watch. I've got this, I got that. But I got to watch. So is it okay? Is it, hey, more golf the better?
It's good to tune in. I like to keep tabs on it. I've never been one for much of an off season anyway. So, do I cut back on my viewing? Yeah, a little bit. Football has to have its place on fall weekends too. But I do find it interesting to see who some of the new names might be coming out that are playing well that we ought to look at once we get around to kind of the meat of the schedule when we start up in January. I think it's important.
All right. Also joining us from ProGolfWeekly.com is their lead writer, Joel Cook. So, Joel, what did you do on your week off?
Well, watched a decent amount of football. That was the most of it. That was a big part of last week. My 2-year-old had her birthday, so we did a lot of fun stuff for that too. But
okay.
Yeah, sports-wise, I was glued to the football games most of the weekend. My big sports affiliation outside of golf is Ohio State football.
So too bad for you.
Pleasant. Yeah, that wasn't pleasant to watch.
Especially since I'm a Michigan fan. I feel sorry
for
you.
I actually live in Michigan too, so that's less tenable when you factor that in. But yeah, that's I was excited waiting for golf to come back. This is going to be a great close to the season.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential drama. We've got the best players in the world playing at their best, and that should make it for a fun couple of weeks. So still, now as far as the standings are concerned, Jeff, what is there? Is there anything that's important as far as top players that have to worry this week?
Yeah, in fact, I was just writing a freelance piece about some of the top players that have to make a push at Conway Farms this week. The Masters champion is hanging by a Green Jackets thread. Phil Mickelson, he pulled off one escape act by getting the captain's pick to the President's Cup team, but he's still got to move up to crack the top 30. The defending FedEx Cup champion he has to finish in the top 5 this week if he's going to get back to Eastlake. The Players Championship winner also sitting out in limbo. So yeah, there's about a half dozen or so names that are on the outside looking in that honestly will be kind of more intriguing to watch this week than the guys at the top of the leaderboard. We know that Dustin Johnson and Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth are going to be in the center of the spotlight. They will be on Sunday if they get into contention, but they will definitely be in the center of the spotlight when we get to Eastlake. It's the question of who else is going to join them in that top 5 so that they can control their own fate as far as chasing that FedEx Cup, and then who might be told to go home early. And we're talking about some significant names.
What are you looking forward to as far as the standings this week, Joel?
Well, there are a few guys that are real intriguing to watch there in the later parts of the 20. You got Henrik Stenson at 26 and Jason Day at 28. And they're right now fairly in front of the bubble, but they're not even, a clinch to go into next week, let alone they're going to want really good position going into it. And Stenson's moved up a lot recently. And Day has 2, but that's definitely a very interesting spot to look at. Yeah, they have people like Mickelson, like Jeff mentioned. Also, Patrick Cantlay, Ian Poulter. Last time he was really pressured like this, you saw him finish second at the Players. He's sitting at 47. He's going to be definitely someone to look at there. I've been surprised so far how few players have played their way into the next round. It's been 3 both times. I mean, I kind of thought there would be some more. So most of the players we expected to be good have been good, and there haven't been a lot coming in from the back, but there have been a few making some good moves.
All right. So speaking of Phil Mickelson, as you said, Jeff, Phil is and he played. Now again, we have no idea what would have happened if he would have laid an egg what was that? What's the last one?
TPC Boston.
Okay, I feel like that was 3 months ago. So in Boston. So anyway, probably gets in. We kind of talked about that. I mean, and I kind of would have figured that, but you never know if he would have played really poorly. But he didn't. And now you got to wonder, I mean, do you think that Phil, was it a coincidence, a little bit of a coincidence he played well, or do you think, hey, maybe a light turned on and he realized how important this was, and therefore if a light did turn on, then what was going on before? So what do you take out of that performance? That kind of came out of nowhere.
He kind of hinted at it while he was in Boston. He has been undergoing, and we know that he's had the arthritic condition for a number of years, but he had really kind of been suffering even greater from that, wasn't letting on to anybody for a big chunk of the year, that he had been dealing with fatigue. He'd been dealing with focus issues. I don't know if any of that, kind of manifested itself after he changed, caddies, after he let Bones Mackay go. But he had really just had a difficult time getting through a round like he wants to, being able to visualize a shot, being able to hold his focus for 4+ hours. And he went and saw a doctor after the PGA Championship and gave him some sort of new regimen. He gives no details on anything like that, but some sort of new regimen that gave him renewed energy and focus in Boston. So if that's the case and it's starting to work, then you would think that maybe he's got a chance to continue some good performances here in the next 2 weeks, or really 3 weeks, because he'll need to play his way into Eastlake by playing well this week. He'll want to play well at Eastlake and then the President's Cup. So he's got 3 significant weeks ahead of him where you kind of hope whatever the medical thing is that it keeps working.
All right. And what about the President's Cup right now? So we have Charlie Hoffman's in, and anything else? And was there any other drama at all, or that's it? Mickelson and Hoffman, that was it, Jeff?
I think that it was pretty drama-free. Remember that Charlie Hoffman and Kevin Chappell were in a virtual tie for that 10th spot, the difference being, less than 1/10 of one FedEx Cup point. And so I think that was kind of an easy pick for Steve Stricker. You don't want to have one guy in and the other one leave off completely. So Hoffman was a semi-automatic pick. And then the question was, do you take Phil or not? I think Phil probably had the edge to begin with. And then he plays well in Boston. He's talking about renewed energy. He's always, kind of that guy that now as the senior statesman has taken the younger players under his wing. And there's a lot of young players on this President's Cup team. So I'm not sure that was a tough decision for Steve Stricker either. Now, on the international side, the two wild cards that were selected by Nick Price were Emiliano Grillo, who is still less than 2 years removed from a victory in his very first PGA Tour start in the fall of 2015, and Anirban Lahiri of India. So an interesting couple of selections for Nick Price there.
All right. So as far as the weather, that was a huge story, still is. And how is the weather, Jeff, affecting what's going on? I know it's affected us a little bit, not you, Joel. So you can take the segment off until the winter. Then the winter comes, and then you're going to have a little bit more of an issue than we will.
Yeah, that's true.
That evens things up. So what is the situation now as far as how the weather might affect the LPGA and Web.com tour?
Well, I think right now we're still kind of in a digging out and reassess moment, really for all of Florida. But from a golf standpoint, there are two significant events that are supposed to take place at the end of the season, and one of which is really tees off 2 weeks from now. At the Web.com Tour Championship, their playoff finale is scheduled for 2 weeks from now in Atlantic Beach, Florida. That's just outside Jacksonville, which suffered record flooding from the storm surge of Hurricane Irma. And I've been trying to monitor reports. I'm sure everybody is still kind of trying to piece the immediate back together, but a very quick decision will need to be made here on whether Atlantic Beach Country Club is in position to hold the season finale for the Web.com playoffs. And if not, what do they do with it? In a sense, it's supposed to be a 4-event playoffs, and that's how we're determining the last 25 cards that are supposed to get on the PGA Tour. To make it less than 4 events puts a little bit of a question into it. On the flip side, the question would be, if not Atlantic Beach Country Club, then where and what kind of capability would anybody have to host a Web.com finals event on 2 weeks' notice? So I think the tour is trying to go through that as quickly as they can while kind of putting things together themselves, because remember, their headquarters is in Ponte Vedra Beach, which is also just outside Jacksonville. As for the LPGA, their season ender, the finale, the CME Group Tour Championship, is in Naples, which might have taken the hardest hit, short of the Florida Keys, of course, from Hurricane Irma. And so I think that getting Tiburon back together in time is probably a very, very, very tall order, even for a club like Tiburon. So the LPGA is probably going to have to consider what they want to do with their tour championship at the end of the year. Right now, I think that is not top priority for the LPGA, simply because this is the week of their final major, the Evian Championship. And as much as we have questions about the season finale, they want to keep as much focus on the Evian Championship as they possibly can. Also, by the way, the USGA has already postponed the U.S. Women's Mid-Amateur, which was scheduled for next month in Naples. They haven't announced either a new date or potentially a new site. They're still trying to work that out, too.
Okay. All right. So we still have we'll have a lot more to cover a little bit later on, but first let's get right into the FedEx Cup Playoff event number 3. And that is the BMW Championship, Lake Forest, Illinois, at Conway Farms Golf Club. And Joel, this is in your neck of the woods, so now it's time for you to speak. So take advantage of it. They've been playing this event mostly on your side of the country, and even though they have played once in Colorado, once in Missouri, but they played twice at Carmel in Indiana, including last year, and 6 times in Illinois, twice, 4 times at Cog Hill, and twice at this location at Conway Farms. So what do you know about this event? What have you found? As far as I'm sure you've watched a lot. I don't know if have you gone to any of these personally?
No, I have not been able to do that yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that in the future.
All right. Well, what do you know about this location, Conway Farms?
Well, scoring is possibly going to be a little lower than we've seen in some of these other events. I know wind's one of its big defenses, and the forecast doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of that, which you kind of opens it up. It's been very dry. They haven't had a lot of weather problems there, so greens are going to be fast, fairways are going to be hard. You could see, you can see the scoring going pretty low. Last time they were there, Jim Furyk had his 59 there. Jason Day had a 61-63 weekend there, and that was under less dry conditions or more wind and all that. But that's it's a good, exciting place for the third match of it. I'm wondering if it's going to be a little like the U.S. Open was this year in a similar part of the country, and whether that's going to help guys like Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas. Anyway, the weather's going to have a big factor on this week.
Joel, I hear you're $5,000 richer since you've been playing our fantasy our handicapping picks game over the last couple of months. What are you going to do with that $5,000?
I don't know. There's still some more money to gain over these next 2 weeks. May just go for broke with that.
Why don't you go to Conway Farms? Why don't you go now? Yeah, you got the money.
That's true. I'm going to have to go do that. That's a great idea.
See, as soon as you start using real money, that's when you start losing. So
yeah.
Just stick with what you got. But yeah, Joel is kicking butt right now. 4 out of 9 winners so far in our handicapping contest. And that includes picking Jordan Spieth to win the Open Championship, Justin Thomas to PGA, Henrik Stenson to Wyndham, and Justin Thomas at Boston a couple of weeks ago. So as far as fantasy, what's going on in fantasy, Jeff?
Well, with the fantasy, I'll have to pat myself on the back a little bit because
good.
In fantasy, I drafted both Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. So
excellent.
I've got a decent lead in our little fantasy trio here, and Joel is second, largely not exclusively, but largely on the strength of drafting Dustin Johnson.
Okay, very nice. I like it when my analysts are doing better than me. That's important. I don't like it when I'm beating my analysts. I mean, ego-wise, sure, but it makes me feel good when you guys are doing well. Okay, so let's go into. By the way, let me ask you, as far as your fantasy picks going into this week. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for after the picks because I don't want anybody to think that I'm probing for picks. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'll give you a little bit of advance notice that after the picks, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me out of your own fantasy team, which player or players that are left. I don't know exactly how many guys are left, maybe most of them. Do you actually like the most this week? So with your fantasy picks, because there are a lot of fantasy games out there, most of them actually, that you have to pick your teams every week. So go ahead and that'll be something for after our picks. And Joel, you've got the first pick this week, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. Excellent. All right. So, and Jeff, anything you wanted to add regarding what we should look forward to at Conway Farms? We've only seen this location here twice, so not a lot to go on. What are we going to look forward to, though, besides what we should expect, some low scoring?
Yeah, low scoring, I think, is definitely the issue. And Conway Farms was kind of a default site for the PGA Tour and this event for a while because Cog Hill, some renovations became lightning rods for criticism by the PGA Tour players and by extension the tour eventually itself. And so the tour and Cog Hill agreed not to renew the deal that they have. And it alternates between Chicago and some other some other locale every other year. So, but at that time, Medina, which is, I think, considered widely the top course that you would want to get a tournament on in Chicago, well, that was getting ready for a Ryder Cup, had just come off hosting a PGA Championship, was not available to sign on at that point. Cog Hill was out of the mix. Olympia Fields didn't pass muster, even though I personally am, kind of a fan of Olympia Fields. Anyway, that's kind of when Luke Donald and the membership at Conway Farms said, "Come take a look at us and see if you think it can host a tour event." And that's why Conway Farms has become the site. However, we have seen that Conway Farms can be a pushover without sufficient wind, and the scores have been low both times. We saw Jim Furyk's 59 in its inaugural edition, and Zach Johnson went even lower, over 4 days than Jim Furyk to win that one. And then we had really soft conditions 2 years ago when Jason Day won.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at, we've only got two players that are in single digits, Jordan Spieth at 6-1, Dustin Johnson at 7-1, and then it goes up from there. So, Joel, you have got the first pick. Everybody's waiting. You're the big winner so far. Who's winning this week?
Well, with the success I've had with him lately, it almost feels like it'd be disrespectful to Justin Thomas not to pick him. However, I think the week off is going to help Jordan Spieth more. I'm going with him this week, even at those lower odds. Back-to-back runner-ups, and he's just really dialed in right now, and I think the extra week's going to help him. I like him on this course. Jordan
Spieth?
Yep.
All right. 13th in 2015, 16th in 2013. But yes, Jordan Spieth seems to be on top of his game, and he has not won yet. The two winners, Dustin Johnson and Justin Thomas. So that definitely makes a lot of sense that maybe it is Jordan Spieth's time to get in the winners column here. All right. So, Jeff, you're next.
Okay. By the way, it may not be the best idea to actually win this week if you want to win the big FedEx Cup. It's only happened once that anybody has won both the BMW Championship and the big enchilada at the end, and it was none of the big names. That was Billy Horschel back in 2014 when he finished his season 2-1-1 and wound up stunning everybody. But he's the only one. So of the big three, I don't know whether to pick them, which will jinx them if they actually win this week, or to try to stay away from them. I guess I'll try to split the difference here. I am not going to take either of the guys. Well, I can't take Spieth, but I'm not going to take Justin Thomas either. I'm going to take the next guy on the list who has a little bit of more experience at Conway Farms and has played fairly well, and he's got to win. And when he's on and he goes low, he's kind of the one guy I think right now that if he gets 3 strokes in front of everybody, then everybody's kind of looking at their watch saying, I don't know if there's enough time for somebody to come back. Now that I look at my odds again, Dustin Johnson is in the single digits, but he's the guy I'm going to.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, that doesn't sound like somebody who I was thinking you were going after. So I was going to ask you about that. I figured you missed the odd. Your analysis was a different player. So I was like, wait, that's
completely misread on the odds.
That's
there.
okay.
I thought it was Spieth, Thomas, Johnson. I looked away, and that wasn't the case.
So Dustin Johnson.
Dustin Johnson.
Okay, because you were about to say somebody who I thought you were going to say, and I was just about to jump on Dustin Johnson, by the way. I was okay, you're going to go do that. I'll take Dustin Johnson. But you're going to take Dustin Johnson at 7-1. He's the second pick. And, again, coming off the win of the Northern Trust. And, by the way, Dustin Johnson has won at Crooked Stick and at Cog Hill. So wouldn't be surprised if he also won at Conway Farms.
To complete the set.
There you go.
Yeah, and he was 7th at Conway Farms last time out.
Yes. All right. So then I'll go ahead and surprise everybody and take Ricky Fowler as my top pick. So, again, maybe overdue with 8 straight top 25s, including 3 top 5s. He was 4th in 2015. And, he's definitely overdue for a good week, a really good week, a winning week, I should say. So I'll go ahead and see it one more time with only one more to go. If Ricky can win a second time this year and hopefully I'll get lucky with him for a second time. Okay, so there's our top 3 picks. Let's go to pick number 2, Joel.
Hey, this guy looks really close to me. He had a poor first round last week that came on really strongly at the end. 8 birdies and 14 holes on the final day. That's Jason Day at 18-1. He's had real high finishes lately. He was the past winner at this course. He destroyed it last time he was there. Hoping that'll give him the confidence and he'll be a little more consistent than he was the past few weeks. Is outside of just a few, like at the PGA, he was incredible outside from one unbelievably bad hole. And then, last week he got off that poor start, but was great after that. I think he's really close. I could see it being this week.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely thinking of Jason Day myself. I think one of the things, Jeff. And look, he is in the last 5 all top 30s, so that's good. And he was 6th to start the FedEx Cup. And then he, as Joel mentioned, look, he won here in 2015. He was 4th in 2013. Even though he's got the top 30s, I guess what it is that I'm not seeing him on Sunday with a chance to win against all these really good players, and not in a way that he can't mentally do it. We know how great he is. It's just that, is his game good enough to do it? Can he come up with a big day on Sunday? Something he just hasn't done, to come up with that big day on Sunday when he's actually in contention, either in the lead or a stroke or 2 back.
Yeah, he just seems right now to be stuck in third gear. He's had one bad round in last week's or 2 weeks ago case. As Joel mentioned, it was a bad first round, and then he came on strong, but it was too little, too late. And there's a new development with Jason Day this week that I don't know if it's just trying to create a spark, if it's something resembling desperation, but Jason Day is giving Colin Swatton the week off. At least as a caddy. And we've talked about the relationship between Day and Swatton before. Not only has Swatton been his caddy since he's come out on tour, but he's been his coach since he was like 11 or 12. And so they have a very long-term, close relationship. Jason Day lost his father at a young age, and so Colin Swatton's also become a little bit of a father figure. But at least for this week, Colin Swatton is being asked to coach only, counsel only, do not come between the ropes and help. He's going to go with a close friend from his days, in school, at golf school in Australia, kind of going the Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy, route there. So we'll see if that creates a spark or if that is a hindrance.
All right. So you have Dustin Johnson with your first pick. And the top 2 players left on the board, if you want to go that way, are both at 14-1. Hideki Matsuyama, who was 7th here in 2015, he has appeared to cool off a little bit. And then you have Jon Rahm. I know he's a favorite of yours. You picked him an awful lot, and in his last 2, but at the FedEx, he seems to be dialed in with a 4th and a 3rd, even though he did seem to be in a little bit of control in Boston a couple of weeks ago, and just couldn't finish the job.
He's still working on the closing thing. He's got 2 wins this year. One was a runaway, and then you have to go back to Torrey Pines, where he won with that long putt from barely still on the green, back of the green at Torrey Pines to win. But his consistency, especially if you're playing fantasy, his consistency is just amazing for a guy that is still, kind of going through that first run of seeing courses. He was not eligible for the FedEx Cup Playoffs last year, so he hadn't seen TPC Boston before. He has not seen Conway Farms before, but a 3rd and a 4th. He's leading the playoffs in putting, and yes, I'm going with him. So Jon Rahm, my second pick.
All right, 14-1 for Rahm. I'm going to go ahead and give this guy a chance. I did pick him a few weeks ago. He didn't play all that bad. Matter of fact, he really is dialed in right now with 4 top 5s, including 6 straight top 15s. And a matter of fact, he was runner-up to Dustin Johnson in both of Dustin Johnson's wins in this event. Maybe that bodes well for you, Jeff. I'll go with Paul Casey as my second choice at 20-1. He's just too hot right now, Joel. And I know he's speaking of having a problem closing. He's really having a problem closing, but he it's not that he's been in the lead though, like on Saturday or Sunday in big events. It's just that he seems to on Thursday or Friday do something pretty good. And then, I think the reason why I'm a little bit more confident with him now is that he's kind of just playing good golf. He doesn't seem to be going up and down a lot. He's just playing well. Which means to me that all he has to do is just step it up a little bit more, maybe on a Sunday, of course, preferable, and he can close the deal.
Yeah, he seems like he's got to win one of these, even if it's by accident at some point. This is, I think, like 6 straight FedEx Cup events that he's finished in the top 5. I think that's more impressive than the Indians winning 20 straight. But he's got
I think so.
That closing issue. I've had him a few times this year, and that's definitely been an issue. He's as good of a bet as anyone in the field for a great finish. But last time when everyone else was going on that huge birdie binge on the front 9, he was just kind of okay, and then he had a bunch of bogeys down the stretch again. I think 11, 14, and 15. He was one of the last players that was still in the tournament. I mean, he's too good at these. At some point, he's got to win one.
Hey, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight into my dad, what I had to grow up with. My dad, he gambles a little bit, not a lot, but he gambles a little bit, and every once in a while he'll have some money in his account. He says, "Go ahead and throw something on for me." So I went in and I put, it was about 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I put $100 on Cleveland at 8-1 to win the World Series.
Wow!
So he's got $900 on him. So I haven't talked to him at all about it. And a couple days ago, I email him because of the streak, and I go, "Hey, just so you know, Cleveland's won 17 straight. So the team I put the money on for you." So his email response was, "Well, that doesn't mean they won the World Series, does it?" So it's like I'm not, so my response was, knowing I'm not going to get into an email debate with him, was, "Well, I thought maybe you just wanted to be updated. That's all." So anyway, there's a little bit of never satisfied in there. And also, when you have gambled as long as some people have, you have a lot of disappointment in your life, unless you're a professional handicapper and you have a lot more successes. It's sort of like, maybe if you had a lot of money on the Falcons last year, you can't, and we've seen it in golf many times with players who are doing really well and then they fall apart. You just have to wait until the event is over before you actually feel good about any wager. So anyway, even though the Indians have won 20 straight, Oakland won what, 21? Was it?
I believe that was the AL record.
Okay, and they lost in the first round. So
yeah, they did that every year.
Well, that's true too. So I do have faith in Cleveland. Especially doing without Andrew Miller. Okay, so let's go ahead and get your pick in, Joel. So you have Spieth and Day as your top 2 picks. Matsuyama's the top guy left on the board at 14-1. Rory is next at 20-1. So you taking either one of those guys, or you like someone else?
No, there's 2 other guys. Neither of them that I'm really torn between right now. But I think I'm going to go to the guy who had a week off. Now at 25-1, Henrik Stenson. He's just been incredible with his, greens and regulation, and he had 29 birdies at the Wyndham recently. And this is a course where there's going to be more birdies out there than there usually is in these kind of tournaments. He's definitely feeling good. At 26, he's a former FedEx Cup champion. So he knows he needs to be higher than that, and he's going to be pretty motivated to move up the board. And I hopefully having 2 weeks off now is going to be helpful for him.
All right. Yeah. I mean, definitely a player that was one of my remaining 2 or 3 that I was considering as well. He seems to be playing better, maybe a little bit more healthier. Did play well here in 2015 and does have those 5 straight top 20s with the win a few weeks ago. So, 25-1, not a bad play for Henrik Stenson. And by the way, Rory, Jeff, I know you took a chance with Rory a few weeks ago. And I was a little bit surprised, and it showed. He's just not playing well. I know that we expect some of these great players because they can just turn it around really fast. But I think we'd all be surprised right now if he turns it around in the next week or two. He was fourth here a couple of years ago. He's the 2012 champ at Crooked Stick. But the game, matter of fact, if you take a look at his last 5 results, each time out, his result has been worse than the other with the missed cut a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, my theory was if he was going to play well at any playoffs event, it was going to be at Boston, where he had won twice before, and it just didn't happen for him. And you talk about, well, he's got to play well here in the next week or two. He's got to play well this week. If he doesn't finish in the top 5, his season is over. He's not going to make the roster for Eastlake. He's currently 51st, so he's got to move up 21 spots to crack that lineup for Eastlake.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him at Eastlake. Do you?
I don't. Not with the way that his performances has been. You know that he's been hurt. Now he goes to a place where he has to go absolutely low. And I'm just not sure that his game now, we know how great a player he can be when healthy, but I'm not sure his game now is going to be able to give him a top 5.
All right, you got Dustin Johnson, John Rahm with your top 2 picks. Who's your third pick, Jeff?
My third pick, I'm encouraged by the fact that Justin Rose has top 10s in both of the first 2 playoff events. Those are the first consecutive top 10s that he has had since back in January. So he's moving up the chart. He's showing some nice results, and he was 13th at Conway Farms 2 years ago.
All right. Yeah, I had 2 players on my list. I was taking the guy you didn't, and Rose would have been the guy, but you took him, and then that left me with the other guy. So that's going to be Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is 28-1. He's also playing better, 3 straight top 20s, and a 6th last time out. So he doesn't have, I mean, like Rose, they both don't have impressive resumes at this location. Rose has been a little bit better. But they're both playing better now than maybe they have played in a while. So we're both going to go with a pair of 28-1 shots, Justin Rose and Patrick Reed. So now let's go with the long shots. These are players that are 50-1 or higher. Joel, it starts, by the way, with Daniel Berger, who was runner-up here in 2015, and Patrick Cantlay is also at 55-1. Cantlay was 13th a couple of weeks ago. And then, of course, everybody else. So who are you going to go with as your top long shot?
I grew up idolizing this guy, so I'm shocked that I'm not have taken him until now. But I love me some Phil at 66-1 this week. Only player in the field to be under to break 70 all 4 rounds. He hit 23 to 25 fairways over the final 2 rounds. At 36 in the FedEx Cup standings, he can be very motivated to have another great week. I'm going to ride that hot hand. Well, sort of hot hand, 1 week anyway. And 66-1, you're not going to get odds that good on Mickelson very often. I'm going to take advantage of that.
All right, yeah. I mean, if his game is back, then 66-1 is a major bargain. All right, Jeff, you have DJ, Rahm, and Rose. So who's your long shot pick?
Well, I had it between a couple of guys. I'm going to take the veteran over the young player in this case, and he seems to be making an uptick here in performance at the right time, and he's an outstanding putter, which I think will be an issue here at Conway Farms. And so at 80-1, he was 6th at Boston 2 weeks ago, Kevin Na.
An oldie, Kevin Na. See if Kevin's got nerves of steel, which we haven't seen. See if he can. How long has it been since Kevin won?
It's been a long time. I remember that it was just a couple years ago where he had like 4 runner-up finishes.
Yeah.
In what was it, calendar year 2015 or something.
Yeah.
He's fallen off since then, but he was 4th at the Wyndham. I don't have a chart in front of me for Northern Trust, but like I say, 6th at Boston. So 2 of his last 3 have been top 10.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and take Kevin Chappell. Chappell is 66-1. He's got 5 straight top 35s. And, of course, this is, I don't know exactly what his points are like, but I would assume this is his best year. So
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe he could, maybe he can go out there and do it with the best talent in the world around him and really up his game. So that's that because he has played really well before in the big spots. That's something that he's good at. We'll see if he can do it again and maybe put himself in contention on Sunday. Okay, first alternate, Joel, in case Spieth, Day, or Stenson does not make it tomorrow to tee off. Who's your top alternate?
For the favorites?
For the favorites. And let's see,
yeah,
how many players you got left here? You've got Matsuyama, you got McIlroy, you got Koepka, you got Kuchar, you got Leishman, you got Oosthuizen, and you got Sergio.
I like Koepka. He won a major recently on in this part of the country. He's hitting it real long. I know he hasn't been great in the playoff events so far, but I think this is a place where he could be really comfortable. His length should help. The big advantage to him. He's a strong putter, 28-1. Those are pretty good odds for him.
All right. Jeff, that leaves you with either Matsuyama, McIlroy, Kuchar, Leishman, Oosthuizen, or Sergio.
I was leaning toward Leishman, but I keep hearing the name Matsuyama called out, and it's like, can we really leave this guy off the board this week? So in a last-second switch, I'm going to put Matsuyama on as my alternate.
Maybe that'll cost you, Jeff. Maybe that'll cost you. All right. Yeah, Leishman's coming off that third place a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and he's playing well right now.
All right. I'm going to go ahead, and I guess in this spot, why not? He is getting a big number, and he's had himself his breakthrough major year. So I'll go with Sergio at 45-1. Big number on Sergio as my number one alternate. Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
He is also one of those guys on the outside looking in. He needs to move up 4 spots to make Eastlake. And if he doesn't, this will be the third consecutive year that he will have skipped the opener and because of that, not gotten to Eastlake.
All right. Well, no more marriage excuses or Masters excuses for him. So time to go out there and get him. All right. Second alternate. This is your long shot in case Mickelson does not tee it up, Joel. So who are you going to go with?
I'm going to go a little down the list, not just a little down, way down the list. There's a guy in there who I don't understand why his odds are where they are. A lot of people consider Conway Farms to be a second shot course. This guy gained 10.8 strokes approaching the green at the Deltec. He was also third in strokes gained tee to green, 14 birdies over the final 3 rounds. And this is a guy who finished 12th in there at 250-1. I'll repeat that again, 250-1 on Stewart Sink. He's 5th in the season on strokes approaching the green, 16th in GIR, 25th in birdie average. I know he's an older guy, but this is I don't get those odds. He should be like half that.
All right. Well, nothing wrong with putting a buck on Stewart Sink. That's for sure. Yeah. He is having a very good season. And I guess it's, look, the competition, like you said, his age. So will he, if he's in contention on Sunday, be able to go mano a mano with the younger kids, the talent that there is out there? But, hey, it's 250-1. Why not throw a buck or two on him? All right, Jeff, your second alternate, long shot in case Kevin Na does not play tomorrow.
Well, I said it was down between a veteran and a young guy, and I took the veteran with Na. Now the young guy's still on the board. So Patrick Cantlay at 55-1, who has a pair of top 15s in his first 2 playoff events ever.
All right, so Patrick Cantlay at 55-1. Yeah, it's his name definitely popped out at me just because of the fact that he was only getting 55-1 in this group. So he's definitely being respected. And we'll see if he could come through once again and maybe even slip into the top 10 or maybe contend. And yes, like if we don't have enough young, talented golfers in the world, let's just throw in another one. I'll go ahead with Adam Hadwin. Hadwin's coming off a pretty good showing at the Dell, and he got his win this year, had a really good start to the season, and no reason to think that maybe he can't take that 13th and maybe his confidence get going again. So I'll take Hadwin at 150-1. All right. So as far as the other, so we went. So the only player left off the board, well, the player left off the board with the lowest odds, with no surprise here with us, is Rory at 20-1, and
And
also,
Thomas.
Yeah.
oh, that's right. Nobody took Justin Thomas. I didn't even realize that. Okay. Why didn't anybody take Justin? Why didn't you take Justin Thomas, Joel?
Well, I thought I went with the kinds of gimme on the first one with Spieth. I wanted to go a little higher upside with Day on the second one, but
Okay.
yeah, mostly because the odds were lower, and then once we got to the third round, I was like, 10-1 odds. I mean, I like him a lot. He's won twice for me recently, and he's definitely hot. He can go low here. Just took other guys over him.
Well, winning 3 out of 4 is not easy.
No.
2 FedExes and a major. That's some pretty historic stuff. So
one FedEx.
What's that?
It's one FedEx.
Yeah, well, it would be 2 if he won.
If he won.
Yeah, so that would
right.
be 3. It would be 2 FedExes and then a major, and then I mean his chances of winning the Tour Championship. So Justin Thomas definitely will be taken next week. So unless he goes out there and ends up 60th this week, I don't think there's any doubt one of us will take Justin Thomas next week, because unless, of course, he wins this week. And then we were like, well, wait a second. He can't win 4-5. So especially if his odds are like 5-1 or 4-1, which they better be if he wins this week. Okay, so as far as the other, I kept going over the players, though, and you guys didn't correct me. You corrected me too late on that when I was going over all the other players that were left on the board. Anyway, who else? Leishman? What do you think about Leishman, Joel?
Leishman, he sure looked great last week, and he's been pretty solid. I mean, that back nine was kind of discouraging after he had taken the lead and gone so well in the front. But 40-1 on Leishman after how well he played, can't complain about those odds at all.
And let's see, Oosthuizen's got 3 straight top 30s, even though his results are going the wrong way. He was 19th here a couple of years ago. Charlie Hoffman, who's now into the President's Cup, is 70-1. Zach Johnson won this event here in 2013. He's also 70-1. He was 13th in 2015. And go ahead.
Okay, so that's a really interesting name I thought on there too. Pat Perez at 125-1. He just had one bogey over his last 3 rounds. The Deltec went 72, 67, 67, 67. It was kind of funny that first round in 72, he hit every single fairway, and that's the one that he end up at over par. But he's 10th in the standings. And we were talking earlier about how some of those players earlier in the year can really make up some room, and he's definitely he's like the poster boy of that. He built up a lot early in the year, and now he's sitting at 10th in the standings.
How about
looking pretty good.
How about you, Jeff? Anybody?
I looked a little bit. Well, as I mentioned, Webb Simpson was almost my alternate pick until I went with Matsuyama, and then also Webb Simpson, who has two top 10s in his last 3. Yeah, he kind of laid an egg in Boston. However, he's actually had a pretty solid year across the board, so he was somebody that I looked at as well.
All right, now I'm going to ask you that question about fantasy. So taking a look at your fantasy game, at your team, Joel, which and it might be some players you picked. I'm not even looking at your fantasy team, but which players that you liked this week out of your group?
Well, I've only lost 2 players so far. Jimmy Walker and Brandon Grace. But I've got Rahm in there. Rahm and Johnson both are very high likelihoods in this one. Kisner was a wasted pick, but I got Paul Casey and Patrick Reed too. Casey's doing great in all these events, and Patrick Reed's coming around at the right time. Kuchar too is he's always someone to look out for in these kind of things. But yeah, definitely Rahm and Johnson should be my big ones, or Casey.
Okay, Jeff, how about you?
Well, I've got a nice big 2 here in Spieth and Thomas, and the guy that hasn't won a playoff event yet is Spieth, so I'll make him 1 and Thomas 1A. But I like Leishman. He's on my squad. Hoffman did very well during the regular season. He's fallen back a little bit, and we'll just have to see with Jason Day.
Okay, so before I let you go, Joel, what is going on over at Pro Golf Weekly? A couple weeks left for the season, President's Cup, and then a whole new season.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Please check out Pro Golf Weekly. It's progolfweekly.com. You get all the stats, videos, compelling analysis, key highlights, and the best in social media for every pro tour worldwide, including the PGA and the LPGA tours. Still working on getting over to our interactive magazine format, but that's incredible once that works. You have to go over there this week. You take a look at Jeff Shane's 10 storylines. That's quite a bit about the Evian in it. Those are definitely interested to look at there. My primer that I put through every week is basically everything you know for this tournament. Also, one that I put out, a piece I'm pretty proud of. I did comparisons at 20 professional golfers. Tiger, Phil, DJ, everyone on there, and gave them an NFL equivalent. I had some of them there, like John Rahm and Des Bryant, Patrick Cantlay, and Jadeveon Clowney. So that's something I would like to definitely see bring about some discussion. But again,
what is that about?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What is that about? The comparisons, the NFL to golfers. What is the logic in that? It's
just the NFL season. It's a great time of year for both golf and pro football.
Okay.
So it's kind of looking like at which golfers who is their best NFL comparison to what we've seen from them in their careers.
And what did you give me an example?
Well, I have Dustin Johnson and Andrew Luck.
Why is Dustin Johnson always hurt?
Well, no, it's been a little bit, but they're very kind of their early unassuming demeanors, like the two for being young men in the internet generation. Really, they have no social media presence. They both kind of have scruffy, low-spoken look about them. I have Brooks Koepka and Cam Newton. They both kind of have that whole big man on campus thing going, and then I've got 3 of them for Tiger, Phil and Peyton Manning. I got about 20 of those on there. It's an interesting read if that's anything that's anyone out there likes football as well.
Sounds cool.
So again, that's pro.
I got to admit, I would have never thought of Jadeveon Clowney and Patrick Cantlay in the same sentence.
Yeah, where did that come from?
It's a lot of it was in how incredibly hyped they were in their amateur years, but injuries held them way back early on.
Got it.
Right now that both of them are playing regularly this season and staying off the sidelines, they both had incredible years. Clowney jumping back he was the main centerpiece once J.J. Watt got hurt last year, and he's turned into the pass rusher we always thought he was going to be there. And Cantlay, we're starting to see his promise finally. He's made every cut this year, and we're seeing that his hype was well warranted, even if he had a few difficult years.
Okay, sounds good. We'll take a look at that. And so go ahead. Did you want to finish your?
Oh yeah, yes, progolfweekly.com. It's a one-stop web portal for all pro golf pros worldwide. Also, follow me at Joel J. Cook on Twitter for the latest updates, commentary, and much more on the course. Just tune in next week, and we'll do this again next week.
Yeah, well, at least one more week for the 2017 season, then the President's Cup. So, Joel, appreciate it as always. Enjoy the golf now that we're back to watching golf again, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's Joel Cook, progolfweekly.com. And Jeff, let's do a quick wrap of everything else going on. Let's see, Lexi Thompson won last week, Colin Montgomery won last week, and Matthew Fitzpatrick had a little bit of a comeback in the European Masters. Scott Henn really blew an opportunity in the the first playoff hole? He had a pretty short putt, was it? And he missed that one? Second playoff hole? Okay. And Fitzpatrick went on to beat him, which usually happens. You miss those short putts in the playoff, and it's going to come back to haunt you. And so Scott Henn had never won in Europe before?
I think that's correct. He's he spent so much time on the Japan tour playing, in the Pacific Rim countries, and really only ventured to the European tour recently. So he doesn't have as big a resume as you might think he does. The interesting thing is he's become one of these guys who has really started to put himself in contention in a lot of events, and he just comes up short of the line on Sunday. And so, in fact, this week's event, with the KLM Open in Holland. Well, Scott Hend was part of that one as well. It had the 54-hole lead last year at the KLM Open, did not finish. Joust Louten won that one.
All right, and then Montgomery, who won last week, is the defending champion this week in Canada. And what's going on at the Web.com Tour Finals now? So Peter Uihlein won last week?
Peter Uihlein, yep, who was once the nation's top-ranked junior, a former U.S. amateur champion back in, I believe it was 2010 or 2011, hit a blip in his career when he did not make the finals of Web.com Tour qualifying after his college career ended at Oklahoma State. So he took the road less traveled and went to Europe, same as Brooks Koepka. And so those two were kicking around over there for a while. Koepka caught fire a little bit faster, but Uihlein's won on the European Tour this year. Because of that, he got into some World Golf Championships events, which allowed him to get into the Web.com finals. And so about 5 years after his odyssey began, he's finally going to get to the PGA Tour next year after winning in Columbus 2 weeks ago.
Another good player to watch every week on tour. Looking forward to that. And so this is it, the final major, the LPGA's this week?
The final major of anybody is the Evian Championship for the LPGA. It's their fifth major. They and the champions have 5 of them now. And kind of an interesting sidelight is Korean we know how much they dominate the top 10. They've got half the top 10 spots in the world rankings. So they have also 3 of the 4 major trophies that have already been contested this year. If a Korean wins this week outside Paris, that will be the first time in history that Korean pros have taken 4 LPGA majors in a single year. 3 has been done twice before, but this would be the first time for 4. It's also going to be kind of interesting. You mentioned Lexi Thompson winning last week. Remember, too, that Lexi Thompson probably should have been the first major winner of the year, except for that arcane 4-shot penalty 6 holes from the end at the A&A Inspiration. Now we're down to the last major of the year. Lexi still doesn't have a major on this year's portfolio. This is her last chance, but at least she's coming in with some momentum.
Okay, so and what's the time difference there? Those will just be early morning deals on Golf Channel.
Yeah, Golf Channel is going to do some pretty significant major coverage with that. The early rounds start at 9:30 a.m. television coverage. Saturday morning again, but then Sunday's coverage will be split between Golf Channel for 4 hours and NBC for the last hour and a half or so.
All right, sounds good. And don't forget to check out Jeff Shane's first look reports for the Tour Championship on Friday at PGAtour.com. And his Around the Tours report is already posted and ready for your reading pleasure at PrimeSportsNetwork.com. And you also did you post something at Pro Golf Weekly that Joel mentioned? Or is that Around the Tours?
I kind of break down the week and the top storylines to follow for the week.
Okay.
This week, I should say. It's kind of a split list because half of them regard the BMW Championship, and the other half, because it's a major, is also looking at the Evian Championship over in France.
Okay, so we'll do this one more time for 2017 next week. Then we'll wrap up the 2017 season and preview the President's Cup the week after. And then we'll let you know probably at that show, the President's Cup preview show, exactly what our 2018 season looks like, which gets underway in just a few weeks. So we're working on some new formats and so forth. So we'll fill you in with all that stuff in the coming weeks, but we'll do it again next week one more time for this season, the Tour Championship preview right here on Prime Sports Golf. And in the meantime, Jeff, the coverage is what this week for golf, for the PGA Tour?
PGA Tour, the remainder of the FedEx Cup playoffs are on NBC.
NBC, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and so even with the Evian Championship also on NBC this week, NBC will do an hour and a half or so of the Evian Championship, and then head almost straight into the coverage of the BMW Championship.
Okay, is that like a deal that they have, NBC, to cover these FedEx Cup events? Because CBS usually gets most of the better events, correct?
Actually, the last contract was signed practically a decade ago. It was like a 20-year television contract.
Oh.
But CBS only has the first FedEx Cup playoff event. Now they've got a couple of the World Golf Championship events, but they only have the New York opener, and then the final 3 FedEx Cup playoff events are done by NBC.
Okay. Well, we will be there to watch it all, and we'll be here to report it all on next week's show. So, Jeff, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Enjoy the week.
All right. And also wanted to thank Joel Cook from ProGolfWeekly.com. Check out Joel's work and Jeff's work, obviously, as well, and everything else going on at ProGolfWeekly.com. So we'll see you next Wednesday right here on Prime Sports Golf on the Prime Sports Radio Network.